Annabelle.
Hey Asiah, what are you doing?
I'm just planning my garden for this year and I'm a little stressed about it.
Why are you stressed, Asiah?
Well, last year my plants didn't grow to be very large and I really wanted to grow more food this year, especially with the rising food prices.
Hey Asiah, have you ever thought about vermicomposting?
What's that?
Hello and welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson,
Honorable judges,
ladies,
gentlemen, and fellow 4-H members. Hello, my name is Annabelle dos Santos and this is my 4th year in 4-H.
and I'm Asiah Dembski and this is my 11th year in 4-H, and today we'd like to talk to you about vermicomposting.
Vermicomposting is the use of worms to convert your organic waste into a fertilizer that can be used in your garden. Today we would like to show you how to make a vermicompost bin, a worm bin so that you can do vermicomposting at home.
There are multiple ways to make a worm bin, but today we're going to show you how to make a cost-effective option because I am a broke university student.
Okay, Asiah, let's get started.
The materials we're going to be needing to use today are a plastic bin that is within 12 and 18 inches deep, an awl tool, cardboard, paper, water, organics, a spray bottle, and red wiggler worms.
Okay, looks like we have everything. Now we can start to assemble our bin.
This is where the worms will convert their bedding and organic material into fertilizer you can use in your garden.
Okay, so our first step is to acquire all of our materials.
Alright, looks like we got everything. What do we do now?
So our next step, we are going to use our awl tool to make air holes.
Today we're using an awl tool, but you may also use a drill.
We are making these air holes to provide ventilation. Without these, the bin with the lid on would be completely sealed, and the worms wouldn't have oxygen to breathe. For our demonstration, we are using a clear bin, but for your actual worm bin, you should choose an opaque bin because the worms like the dark. Air holes also make sure that your bin doesn't smell bad. Our next step is to cut our paper and our cardboard.
Paper and cardboard provides bedding for the worms, but also a valuable food source.
Hey Asiah, what sort of paper can we put in here?
We can use any sort of paper as long as it's not glossy. Glossy paper includes photo paper or that from a magazine. But paper that we can use would be newspaper, printer paper, or even your failed math exam.
You might be wondering why we are using cardboard. So we are using cardboard because it's an organic material and it's the best option for bedding since it's fluffy. It allows airflow while also absorbing excess liquid and while keeping the worms moist.
You may use newspaper or printer paper like we are, but be sure to mix it with either cardboard or coconut fibers to ensure that the bedding is fluffy.
We really like cardboard because it's a cost-effective option, and you likely already have some of it lying around your house.
You may rip your paper by hand, like I'm doing currently, or you may use a paper shredder. We have shredded the rest of our paper and cardboard in advance with the shredder.
Our next step, we are going to dampen our paper and our cardboard using our spray bottle. You want to dampen it enough that it is moist, but you don't want it dripping wet, and then you are going to add it into your bin.
Hey Annabelle,
Yeah?
what do you call a worm with no teeth?
I don't know.
A gummy worm.
You want to fill the bin 3/4 full. Bedding is necessary since organics produce heat during the decomposition process. The paper and cardboard bedding is cool and will protect the worms from the heat.
Hey Annabelle,
Yeah?
why are worm castings so good for your plants anyway?
Well, worm castings, which have the appearance of dark soil, are proven to make your plants grow larger and to make your flowers bloom earlier. It's also a source of nitrogen for your plants. It contains carbon, iron, and potassium, and is loaded with beneficial bacteria to help support other organisms, such as the plants in your garden. They can even enhance your soil's ability to retain water.
Wow, that's amazing.
Okay, our next step is to add our organics. Hey Asiah, what sorts of foods can we put in here?
Red wiggler worms can consume fruit and vegetable waste, eggshells, tea bags, and coffee grounds.
So can I throw my leftover sandwiches in there? What about spicy foods, citrus, and dairy?
No, these worms can't eat much bread. They also shouldn't be eating much dairy. Citrus and spicy foods such as hot peppers can burn them in close quarters, so it's best not to have those in our bin. These worms are also vegetarian, meaning they don't eat meat. So when we do put the organics in the bin, we want to spread it around and bury some. Like we mentioned earlier, organics give off heat during the decomposition process, so you don't want all of that concentrated in one area.
Okay, so now that we have added the organics, we will get to the part that you have all been waiting for, the worms. Now, unfortunately, we can't bring any live animals into our demonstration, so we had to compromise. Asiah, what are you doing? Are you eating our fake worms?
No, they're gummy worms.
If you eat any more, we aren't going to have any left for our demonstration.
Okay, well at least they're not the real ones.
Okay, moving on.
Now we will put the worms into the bin. It is also important to note that you want to start off with 1 pound of red regular worms per square foot of the surface of your box. These worms are surface dwellers, meaning you want plenty of space at the top of your bin.
Now those are some happy worms.
Annabelle, now that the worm bin is completed, what happens afterwards?
Now we wait. When we see barely any organics left in the bin, we simply add more.
And since the bin is made out of plastic, excess liquid may pool at the bottom of the bin. So about once a week, dig down to see if there's any excess liquid. If so, just add some dry bedding to the bottom of the bin to soak up the excess moisture.
And in about 3 months, the worms will have transformed all of this into worm castings, which is fantastic fertilizer for your garden.
You can separate the worms from the castings afterwards using a sifter, since the castings are rather small. Or you can do it by hand, by placing a pile of the castings onto a table with the light above them. The worms don't like the light, so they'll travel away from it, and you just scoop the castings off the top as they travel down.
And if you do miss picking out some of the worms, it's no big deal. They would also make a very healthy addition to your garden.
Hey, well, this sounds like a great idea, but is it affordable?
Here, Asiah, I'll do a cost breakdown for you. On worms, you can get from your local worm farmer or vermicomposter for $40 to $70 a pound. Our plastic container, if you don't already have one at home, is about $5 from your local retail store. An all tool, if you don't already have one, is about $4 from your local hardware store. A spray bottle is about $2 from your local grocery store. Paper, you should already have some of this lying around your house, so it's free. Water is also free, and your household waste is free. So this comes to a total maximum of $84.
Whoa, that's kind of a lot.
That may seem hefty, but once your worms start breeding and you sell the offspring, I'm sure you'll be very happy with your investment.
All right, Annabelle, well, let's summarize. First, we gathered our materials. Then we made air holes into our bin. Then we shredded our cardboard and our paper. We dampened the bedding and put that in the bin. And lastly, we added our organics and our worms. And now we have our completed vermicompost bin. In conclusion, having a worm bin is a fantastic way to get rid of household waste. It is also an effective way to create excellent fertilizer for your garden. We hope that you will all consider using this effective method of composting.
I hope this fertilizer will really help with your garden this year, Asiah.
Thanks, Annabelle. Are there any questions?
Why do you recommend red wiggler worms specifically?
The question has been asked, why do you recommend red wiggler worms specifically? Well, red wigglers, they are surface dwellers and they perfectly fit in the size of our bin. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, red wiggler worms are meant for, they're known as composting worms. So their goal is to, when they produce waste, which is what the castings are, it is beneficial to plants, while other worms don't create the same effect to that degree. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
I missed at the beginning when you said the clarity of the bucket. Did you say a darker bucket or a clearer bucket? Just a minute.
The question has been asked. I missed the question before. Is it a lighter bucket or a darker bucket? So the answer to this question is it's a darker bucket. The worms don't like the light, and so an opaque bin would be a better choice. Does that answer your question?
Yes, the back.
If you're using like a darker bucket, how will you know if the worms die or not?
The question has been asked, if you're using a darker bucket, how do you know if the worms have died or not? Well, you can open the top of the lid and you can look inside and see if the worms are still moving or alive. And that's how you can tell if your worms are still alive in a darker bucket. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Are there any further questions? Yes.
Once everything's been composted, does it all go into the garden and then you have to make a new bin, or do the worms just stay in the bin and everything just kind of keeps cycling?
The question has been asked, once it's all done composting, do you need to start over or the worms stay in the bin? Once you're done composting, you can remove the worms from the castings and then you can just put them into more bedding like we did here, and then you can create more castings with the same worms. Does that answer your question?
Are there any questions?
Can the worms be released out into the wilds, or are they considered an introduced species, and can they do harm if you let them go?
The question has been asked, can we release these worms out to the wild or not? You can. Red wiggler worms are just like another worm that you would find outside. They're not like specifically only for composting. They do exist outside of composting. Does that answer your question?
Are there any questions?
Are there any further questions? Yes.
So where would you keep your bin? Is it safe to put it outside, or does it need to be stored indoors?
The question has been asked, where do you keep your bin? Should you keep it outside or should it be stored indoors? So the answer to this question is it really depends on the temperature and the season. So they can be stored indoors in a garage outside.
Yes, the desired temperature for these worms is between 16 and 25 degrees Celsius, though they can survive between 5 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius. So if you do have it outside in the sun, I would recommend putting it in somewhere in the shade so it's in between that area. And though in like the winter especially, I would recommend having it inside so that you can regulate the temperature better. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Are there any questions?
Are there any further questions?
Are there any questions?
If there are no further questions, then this concludes our demonstration on our
Vermicomposting!